or something.
May
That's
I
great.
record? I'm sorry, I didn't record. We
Sure, yeah.
record all. Thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So you could, but what was interesting, last time I was up there, they live in Redmond, Washington. He was talking about, I actually wasn't up there, I was talking to the phone. He was still the principal of the school until 2 weeks ago. And she was a public school teacher. Coronavirus comes, they have to go to Zoom remote learning. He said within a week, the entire school was just dialed in. Every parent was trained, every student was trained, you know, and we didn't miss a beat.
Right.
He was like, he ran the school, so he was like, and they were hugely technology oriented anyway. And I think the population of the school, being in Redmond, which is where Microsoft's headquarters is,
Yeah.
actually the school wasn't in Redmond, but it was close, and Amazon's there. The parents were all
Like
technology
that.
savvy.
Right.
Miss a beat. They ran like crazy. She said her experience in a public school is it was a disaster.
Right.
Never got it done. Basically, we kind of shut down the school because we couldn't figure it out. There was no learning going on.
That's right.
And
Yep.
the difference, you know, and they're having dinner together. I don't know why he couldn't say, "Let me show you how to do this," but they didn't. But so I think in the environment you're in today, you're in a sweet spot where there's all these, and tell me if you disagree, but there's all these desperate public school teachers who say, I don't know how to keep these people engaged.
True.
And,
That's true.
And there's homeschooling people who say, I'm sure homeschooling mom and dads, you see read all these blog posts and all these interviews of like, I don't know what to do with a 12-year-old, you know, I'm supposed to be teaching them how to job online. So to go park them in front of something that's truly educational, I think is a real opportunity.
So the each one teach one. The each one teach one could be to bring the public school in. We're working with that. The each one and somehow, because that's a pain point for many private school teachers, is that they know that there's a school down the street that is struggling.
Great. Well, yeah, one that's doing great and one that's struggling.
Yeah.
You know, if you could take the model of Audacity, for example, not Audacity or
Audacity. I think it is
Udacity, and then the other one. Anyway, if you
Coursera.
Coursera, yeah, thank you. If you could become in effect almost a clearinghouse of sharing of lectures, you know, there's the film, you know, The Red Balloon, for example, and some, you know, teacher of the year like you did a lecture on the red balloon, and here are her notes, and here's all this, and we could take that, we could give her a spiff, you know, give her some money or whatever, and then you could share that with the whole world. And then the teachers would feel, teachers who don't know anything about film would feel empowered and would be empowered to say, hey, I can bring to the table, not only I don't have to feel guilty sitting in the back of the room and saying, thank God they're quiet for an hour and a half and I can sit back here and make an up or grade papers, whatever, but I actually feel empowered because it's a really cool film and I've got the notes from the teacher of the year for on how to teach this, and I know how to really engage them. And in fact, the teacher, watched this great teacher, a video of her teaching a class, and I saw what worked and what got the kids engaged and how they responded. You know, it's like teach the teacher or teach them how to fish. Don't give them a fish, teach them how to fish.
That's exactly.
Yep.
The class you guys are in.
That's really nice. That's really, I mean, we've been thinking about, of course, the filmmaker presenting in sort of a TED Talk way, or we have hosts and we have young hosts at the same time, and so we host them and talk about the film. This way is much more portable and accessible.
I also think, I will tell you, I do guest lectures at Berkeley too. And the feedback I've gotten and the observation I've gotten, at least for the MBA programs that I talk at, is this generation, and I think it's true, they don't want to be lectured at. And the whole TED Talk thing, I don't even like TED Talks. It's like, okay, you get up there, everybody thinks you want to talk about how to alienate the entire, you know, Trump voting population or the Rust Belt state.
Yeah.
You know, put on a fucking TED talk and let somebody, a room full of arrogant, entitled, rich Silicon Valley type people who paid $10,000 to sit in a room and watch a bunch of people talk for 15 minutes.
That's how they did it, right? Was it 10,000? I didn't know how much it was. Oh my.
No, it's actually about $8,500. I was rejected. I have a friend who goes every year. He said, you got to come, you got to come. I filled out my thing. I've done 5 startups, sold 5 startups, have one of the top 10 people in 100,000. And I can't, it's like, I got, 6 patents and 14 applications. I'm rejected. I'm like a cast off. Can you imagine somebody who's an unemployed steel worker is going to say? Plus the kids in today's world with a short attention span and TikTok, and they don't want to sit there and be lectured at, especially by somebody on a video. I'll bet you what you did as teacher of the year is engage the kids and draw them out and get them involved.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
If the films are as good as I know they are, they're going to have a visceral emotional reaction to them. The challenge as a teacher is to tap into that reaction and get them involved. That's why I think the video of the teacher who's the teacher of the year is not something you show. So it's like Debbie Boone is a teacher in Austin, Texas, and I'm going to show you her video after the other video. I think the teacher gets that video and it teaches the teacher how to do this. And
that's a really good point. You're right. There's an art. There's definitely an art, and you don't get to learn it. You need help as a teacher. Teachers need resources. They need help. They need modeling. They need a lot of support. There's a lot on their plates. So yes, absolutely, that would be really beneficial.
Well, in my idea, there's 2 videos. There's the film itself, the red balloon say. Then there's a video of the teacher teaching the class. Her class has just seen the video. She's teaching it. Then there's another video of the teacher talking to the teacher on the other end who's saying, let me tell you what I was doing and why I was doing it and how I do this and what works for me and what you might try. And when this doesn't work, go in this direction, because you're inevitably going to, we've all done things where you've given, you're all excited, you know what you're going to do, and then you do it. It's like I gave a presentation. I had the last startup I had that I sold to my current company. I have a friend who's an illustrator and a children's book writer who lives in Mill Valley, by the way, and did one of the Mill Valley Film Festival posters. And so I thought, I'm going to do a presentation which is nothing but his illustrations, and I'm going to tell the story of the history of the company and our vision for the future, and I'm going to put up illustrations, and it's going to be like a children's book version. So I got my together. And I was sure that I was going to kill with this thing. And I got absolutely, I was up there for like 25 minutes and I stuck to it, because once you're committed, right? You're like, so you can't say, okay, fuck this. I'm not going to do this anymore. And fuck all of you, because you're not laughing and you're not, apologize for the profanity. But, so I get through it, not a smile cracked, nothing. This is my company full of engineers, by the way. And I go, man, that was brutal. So my point is, there's always even stuff that you're sure is going to kill in a classroom or in a presentation setting. Sometimes it goes south. Actually, that night we went out to dinner. They all wanted to go to Dave & Buster's, which is like a pizza, hamburger, video game joint, because engineers like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And like everybody came up to me and said, man, that was awesome. We love that. And I said, well, we could have fucking smiled at least. We could have. Somebody could have laughed.
Maybe you had lulled them so much they were in such a relaxed state.
They were in a trance. Yeah, that was not happening. Anyway, the teacher and the ideas of, if this doesn't work, go here. If this doesn't work, go here. Here's my thinking on this. And don't just mimic what I did. Here's why I did what I did.
Are you suggesting, Robert, a sort of a Rosetta Stone, where there's a teacher who, in the Rosetta Stone model, there is a native speaker who is teaching directly. So there are sort of office hours with the teacher?
No, I don't think that's scalable. I think in order to be scalable, you got to say, you're going to teach the red balloon, for example. You're teacher of the year in Mountain View. You've killed with red balloon for 5 years, film, you know your kids. And so here's a video of you teaching a class. And I would say you should go back and call your principal and say, hey, can I go show Red Balloon and guest teach a class or whatever your favorite film is. Got to be a film about which, by the way, you're passionate.
Right, exactly.
Work because, you know, like I would teach The Big Lebowski. So which probably wouldn't qualify for your program. Or maybe Roadhouse with Patrick Swayze. But you have to be passionate. Then you teach it. Then you film your thing. This could be your, you know, your MVP. And then you talk to the teachers and you teach them how to do it. And then it's only scalable if you know 5,000 teachers can do it.
Right.
And you could actually translate it. Google Translate could, because it doesn't really matter as long as it can be translated effectively, you could make it global. Because I think the core of what you're doing is what's in the human heart and what hits people about these films.
Exactly.
So even if you did this and you use Google Translate, you could have Google would probably do this for you for free. I could probably introduce you to somebody at Google.
That would be helpful.
Yeah.
And then you translate the notes, and then if they see the film and they see what you're doing and they have subtitles, and then you translate the notes, you could scale this without, you know, you could do 10,000, you know, teachers around the world could do it.
True.
And by the way, going back to the Rust Belt states, you almost have to have some kind of Trojan horse strategy. But the whole Silicon Valley, I was involved in a group once. Talk about the worst idea in history. They said we're all successful Silicon Valley entrepreneurs, so we're going to rent these buses. They're going to be these luxury buses. We're going to go across the country and stop into these shitty little towns. That's my version of what they're thinking. And we're going to teach them in a day how to be entrepreneurs. And then we're going to go, you know, get on our bus and have our private chefs cook, you know, us these fabulous meals. As I talked about a recipe for just validating every horrible thing everybody thinks about you and me and everybody out here.
It's hillbilly elegy. That's what it is.
Did they do it? Exactly. Did they do it? Did they try it?
I don't know. I quit. I said, I can't. I raised some questions and they all looked at me like, what do you got, a bad attitude? I mean, you know who I am? It's like, yeah, I think that's
what I call the arrogance of kindness. The arrogance of kindness is very strong amongst us, I guess, and you have to live there and understand these folks. One of our interviewees is in rural Washington, and she said, you know, the school board is very conservative, and it will take a lot to get films shown, and so the kids do grow up very sheltered with conservative ideas.
Well, you need a Trojan horse strategy, and by the way, you need to make sure, and I'm pontificating here, but you can't be perceived as liberal or conservative. You have to be perceived as. You could almost come in through a family values thing. I mean, ironically, your biggest advocates could be the Christian right, as long as you stay away from all political discussions, and you had the right film selection that was just. I mean, go to you know, the Pope, for example. You know, he would be there. There got to be 100 films out there that everybody could agree are just wonderful films about, you know, the experience of being a human being with and things that are common, right? That are not pro-choice or pro-life, and not there's no Black Lives Matter element to it, and there's nothing that there's no church versus state and the war on God or whatever they call that. There's nothing that Sean Hannity or Rush Limbaugh could react to, and there's nothing that the left-wing thought police could react to either.
Well, I think we are doing well by focusing on the language teachers, but the language teachers have been there all along. And so how do we empower them further? And for instance, in my high school, there was no language teacher. She was a tiny, mousy little teacher who taught Spanish and mainly had remedial or English language learners in the class. And there were certainly no films shown there. So I want us to hang on to that very strong persona, but somehow maybe the action is to empower the language teacher and also engage the other teachers.
But you can't trigger anybody. You know, I went to an event here, like it's NPR, the guy, Scott, whatever his name is, he's the NPR guy on Saturdays. And so I live in a liberal community.
Yeah.
And so we go, and I listen to NPR every day. And now we go to this event where Scott Horsley, or whatever his name is, speaking. And there's this whole, you know, he's supposed to be a journalist, and there's all these snide comments about Trump, and we're all, everybody's chuckling because we all know we're superior to everybody who doesn't realize what an asshole Trump is. And it's this NPR insider chuckle thing.
Yes.
I finally got up and left. And I hate Trump, and I'm probably would vote along the same lines as all these people, but this whole idea of this arrogance and this smugness is probably a better word. I'm not even a conservative, and it made me want to throw up and get up and leave in the middle. And then they all looked at me like, how did he get in? He must be a Trump voter. So it's like, hey, fuck all of you. Okay.
Yeah. Well, that's what's going on. And it's the polars, the two poles, and we're doing the same thing. The behavior's the same.
Yep.
That's kind of what we're going for. We're kind of going for Netflix for the soul. We're trying to really hone in on like universal themes. And we've even discussed, a lot of AP teachers really like the idea of having films that specifically target the AP themes, which are just basic things like global challenges, technology, and science. And that's something we're really interested in going deeper into. And I just want to ask you too.
Even when you're talking about science, you got a potential trigger there.
You do, yeah.
Right?
I wanted to ask you too. It's funny you brought up TEDx, because we were talking to Chris Stiles, I think, one of the mentors in the class, and he said we should model our business after TEDx, but instead of vetted, curated videos, we should do like say they're curated movies, and then kind of work as a nonprofit, because we'd get more donations that way. That's kind of what he said. What do you think about starting as a nonprofit or being for profit? Do you have an opinion on that?
Thanks, Jeff.
I don't really have the nonprofit would allow you to get donations. And the for-profit, you know, if you go out and raise money, I don't know what your plan is, but if you're going to go raise money in the Valley, you're going to have a hard time because you kind of smell like a nonprofit.
Thanks for that. Interestingly, we have a $250,000 matching grant from venture capital in Europe. And so, but I haven't found the match to that yet. And that's been since last August.
Well, there's kind of a double-edged sword here. So if you went out with a whole series on Black Lives Matter and stuff like that right now, you'd probably get a bunch of VCs who'd be willing to put in 250 grand, because they're all trying to find ways to tell the world beyond the letters they posted on their website that they really are serious. So anything that looked like that, they'd probably do it.
Do you know them? Tell us who they are. If you know them.
Well, just go to the do a search for, you know, venture capital Black Lives Matter, and I'll bet you every venture capital firm in Silicon Valley has put out some kind of letter saying we support the Black Lives Matter movement. They're not going to be hard to find. It's every one of them. So go get the list of go to the National Venture Capital Association, NVCA.
Sure. Okay. And funded maybe.
Well, and just get a list of venture capitalists and then go to their websites, and they'll be probably on the homepage. It says we support this, and then they've all set aside, like Andreessen Horowitz, we've set aside $4 million to invest in blah, 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 blah. I don't want to diminish the movement. I'm skeptical about the motivations about, tremendously for-profit businesses pretending to care about social causes when everybody who populates them is a white guy who went to Harvard Business School or Stanford Business School.
Right. But what is that, corporate responsibility fees funds they have on the side, or are they actually funding?
This is all new stuff. My thing is, if you gave a shit about this, you would have been behaving in a way that honored it before 6 weeks ago.
I agree with you. But
you wrote some kind of fucking letter does not impress me.
But their behavior change could be funding a company that creates change.
Maybe. Good. I hope you're right.
Okay, so we have to tap dance in that direction.
When the dust settles and the election's over and the protests are over, how are they going to behave? They all put out a bunch of letters about women too, and they've done very little.
Oh, right.
The company I work for is a big company, and my boss, our CEO, took over 2 years ago, and we've got 4 new board members and 3 of them are women. So, okay, I don't need a letter to see that, right? I put together dinners in Silicon Valley for him, and the last dinner I did was all women. And then he went to the bar afterwards and talked for like 3 hours late into the night, despite the fact he had got up at 4 a.m. on the East Coast about his granddaughter and what these women had said. I mean, people who care behave in a way that they care and don't write letters. He wrote a letter too, but but I care more about behavior than letters. But going back to my original point, they've all put out letters, and now they're on the hook for, okay, you put out the letter, now then the letters in a lot of these cases said, we've set aside money for this. So if you did a specific Black Lives Matter, or I wouldn't use that language because it's somewhat inflammatory to your Rust Belt population, but you could do something like the Black experience in America, or so it's more, which I think is more accurate, and not do, and I would be careful about films that had an angry tone to them, because you're gonna alienate everybody in the red states. But just something, going back to the point you were talking about, can't remember the exact words you used, but highlighting the soul or something like that.
Netflix for this.
Something that just talks about the human experience as seen through. I grew up in Menlo Park, right? So I thought Menlo Park was Mayberry RFD, and I was Opie, right? And then I was in high school, and I'm driving in a car with 3 Black friends from the football team, and all of a sudden the police are everywhere. We hadn't done anything. We're driving around Draegers. And all of a sudden they pull us over. And I thought, well, that's weird. So I'm laughing. And then they're telling us to put our hands on the car. And I'm laughing. And my friends are saying, hey, stop. And I said, we haven't done anything. We got nothing to be afraid of. I mean, this is Menlo Park. This is America.
Right.
It's right over there. We're all liberals. And they must. And then the cop said, get the fuck back in your car and get the fuck back on the other side of the freeway, or we're going to arrest you.
East Palo Alto, right?
East Palo Alto.
East Menlo Park or East Palo Alto. Yeah. This is a Menlo
and he expected that they were coming on the wrong side of the tracks.
It was 9 p.m. and they were over by Draegers, and it was like, we don't want any Black people on this side of the town,
And that's California. That's California. I know.
Can you imagine Mississippi or something? Jesus Christ. But my point is, I had this, you can do this through film, but I had, and this is my experience, is exactly what people are getting with what's his name? Floyd.
George Floyd.
George Floyd.
George Floyd, yeah. They saw it. They felt it. They experienced it. They're like, take your knee off his neck, for God's sake.
Everybody's saying it, right.
And it goes on and on and on. You have this epiphany, like, holy shit, it's true.
Right, exactly. Yep.
So my point is, the Black experience, if you did that and you went to Andreessen Horowitz, Mark Andreessen or Ben Horowitz or one of those people, and you said, we're looking for $200,000 to sponsor a you know, a film series for schools around the country to highlight them. And you put in the challenge you're going to have in terms of your long-term goals, if you want to get into those red states, is when your AP English teacher in Biloxi, Mississippi, takes it to the school board and says, I want to do this. The book burning crowd is going to go to town trying to find something that demonstrates that you're a pinko fascist liberal Antifa, you know, plants, and they're gonna you don't want your website or the posters on your walls behind you, whatever, to have anything that's going to they're going to be able to latch onto and flog you with and say you're never coming into our town.
Yeah, this is the problem, unfortunately, with state-run school boards. But Obama tried to equalize that with Common Core standards. This also seems like something that they're probably still working on at the Obama Foundation and through Emerson Project.
Have you talked to the Gates Foundation?
Yes, I've tried to get into someone to talk to there, and I have not made inroads yet.
No, I'm also spent a lot of time with Microsoft and have been unable to get into the Gates Foundation. I was supposed to, and you know, they said, who in the company can the Gates Foundation talk to about this? And we said, it's Robert. And then I waited, and they said, Brad, who's the president of Microsoft, Brad's going to introduce Robert, and it never happened.
Oh my!
So the
Wow.
Gates Foundation would be perfect for you.
Right.
Yeah, and they have to
Well,
be
maybe-
looking. I actually met someone from the Gates Foundation in Denmark, and he wouldn't talk to me. We started a conversation, and then he stopped talking to me. It was really.
How about Harpo? Do you know who
Also,
Harpo is?
yeah, that's
Oprah.
Oprah. There is on her website, it says you can pitch things to us, but it's likely that we've already thought of it. So as far as, you know, if you pitch something to her, she would absorb it. So the way into her is another way, not through.
The guy, I was at a conference once, and I sat next to the guy who's CFO of Harpo. At least he was. This is like 8 years ago, and I was in the process of trying to create a children's book startup with my friend who's the illustrator, Craig Fraser, and children's book author. So the idea, this is, I don't know, 8-10 years ago, but the idea was to take with children, children's books. With children's books, you write the book, you publish it, you print, I don't know, 5,000, 10,000, whatever you print, and now you take your shot. And if you don't make it, then the publisher's got all these books in the warehouse. And then at some point, they just basically say, you want them back, or we're going to burn them, or whatever. Yeah. But there's warehouses full of these things. And what's unique, I think, about children's books is parents don't buy them unless they have a chance to look at them. No parent buys a children's book just because, unless it's a Booker Award winner or whatever those things are. You just have no chance of selling those books if they're not on the shelf or when parents can look at them. So the idea was to digitize the books and put them online with page turning technology, so that you could actually say, there's this backlog of books, and if you want to take a look at them, and then there's a community around it, people can share their thoughts, you can go get the books. And what happened is teachers started, found the site and said, we're going to read this book, and then they'd put it on their digital screen, and they do the page turning, and they teach the class how to read, and they do the book, and you could see the illustrations. Teachers loved it. And anyway, I sat next to this Harpo CFO, and I said, we'd like to talk to you about this. It sounds, Oprah, this is when Oprah was on TV. Oprah's got the book club. This would be great. He said, great. So I set up a meeting, and my friend pitched it, and then it didn't go anywhere. But you might try to go through, if the CFO, you could do a search for Harpo CFO if it's a black guy, and I forgot his name. I looked at my contact list. I've erased it by now. But he was very nice and very smart and very thoughtful and very receptive.
Okay. Well, see, We'll see who that is, and we'll ask him if he's the one.
Well, and again, that might be a Black Experience online film festival, right?
Mm-hmm,
I would think that would be, and the great films through the ages of the Black Experience. And if you really wanted to piss everybody off, you could start with A Birth of a Nation.
Oh, I know, right? Right.
Which would be, by the way, which would be the right place to start.
Right.
But
you are right, and it continues to be shown. Wow, I just need to.
The Klan was effectively dead before that. They, by the way, they didn't even burn crosses. It wasn't a thing. What's his name? The guy who made it put it in the film because it was dramatic, and they said it was kind of like Godfather. A lot of that stuff in Godfather, Mario Puzo made up, and the mafia said, "That's some cool stuff." We're gonna start doing that. The Ku Klux Klan didn't burn crosses till it was in there, and they said, "God, that is pretty exciting stuff."
Tiki torches, okay. No.
Yeah.
That's right.
Robert, this has been great, and I know it's not the last conversation. We have a meeting with Craig, our mentor, about our final presentation this evening.
Craig, what's his last name?
Craig Seibel. He is with Movie Labs, which was, I believe Steve Weinstein founded that. And so
I think he was. I think I was late for I took over office hours, and they put me in the wrong room, so I was late. And Craig was in the room. He was handling before me.
He's here, in fact. Let's bring him in and say hello. There we go. Hi, Craig.
Hey, Craig.
We're talking with Robert Locke. Hi, Craig. We're talking with Robert Locke, and have just had a great conversation.
Should I come back or?
No.
Well, we can say.
Go ahead.
You can say hello. You've met, I think.
Craig,
yes, of course. Hi. Good morning.
And Robert has just given us great insights, a possible different direction to go with videos, teachers to teachers, which was also your idea with Regina. Contacted Craig's. Yeah, contacted Craig's teaches teachers, trains teachers with a consulting firm in California. So this is an interesting match. And Robert and I go back a little bit from the Mill Valley Film Festival.
Great.
Yeah. And, so
is that how you found out about this class? Through Robert?
No, actually.
Oh, okay.
I had found out about it through the Stanford community. And that's how.
Right. It was nice chatting.
Robert,
thank you very much. Thank
Robert,
you.
Address.
Thank you.
I can give introduction to my brother if you'd like, or my brother and sister if you want to talk about homeschooling and
yes, very much.
That'd be great. Yeah, if you could introduce us to both of them.
That would be great.
All right. Good luck tonight in your final session.
Thank you. Will you be there?
I will be. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Okay.
Right. See you tonight, Robert.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Save that recording. Katie.
Oh yeah. Let me stop and start